So I'd like to call this meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. Lee. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call: Casey Barney, Kathleen DeWolf, Lee Sharps, Harold Lamos, Fran Newton here. Before we get started, I'd like to just take a minute of silent reflection in honor of our late President George H.W. Bush. Thank you. We do have a guest tonight, and before we, unless there are public comments on the agenda, I'd like to introduce, Lee, you want to introduce our guest?
Sure. Mr. Elijah Garrison is from Revision Energy, and he's going to be giving us a brief overview of what his company does. They just did a large project in Meredith at the school, so I think, as a lot of people know, after the election last March, I said in my last term, these 2 years, I wanted to try to start bringing solar energy to town. So one of my goals was to bring some presentations to the town and the board and the electric commissioners, hopefully, so that we can get started on this and not be one of the last ones in the state to get on board. Briefly, I guess, could I just explain in lay terms to the public, because I've done a couple articles on solar energy, what actually occurs, the power that we get from the sun. And basically what happens, the sun hits the solar panels, and that energy is called DC, direct current. And the DC, when it's connected to a transformer on the main panel, turns it into AC, which is alternate current, and that is what our homes use, is the AC. And that is monitored by net metering, which I believe Mr. Garrison's going to explain a little further, and that's probably the most confusing part. But that is what regulates the consumption of the electricity and how it's used in a home or a business or government buildings.
Thank you, Lee.
Mr. Garrison.
Welcome. Please.
Thanks for having me. So I wasn't quite sure what the setup was here, so I do have some slides, but I will just kind of use them for reference to keep me on track as I give my remarks. And I'll try to keep it fairly brief because I think I want to open it up for questions and answers as well. But I guess it's a pretty exciting time in terms of the energy options that are available. Renewable energy, as we mentioned, a number of towns, nonprofits, businesses, and individual homeowners throughout New Hampshire, Maine, Massachusetts, Vermont, all surrounding states are, we're really seeing the adoption curve take off. And there's a few factors behind that. I'll get into that a little bit. But it's certainly something that everyone should be considering and thinking about, learning their options and deciding whether it's a good choice or not. I guess before I get into that, if I could just briefly introduce Revision Energy and our background and who we are, so we sort of know where I'm coming from. Revision Energy was founded in 2003. It was kind of a classic two guys in a garage playing around with solar projects in the 80s, and then turned it into an actual business in 2003. Since then, we've grown to north of 260 employees in 3 states, and we've installed at least 8,000 clean energy systems since then. So it's been pretty rapid growth, and we've sort of, through hands-on experience, learned what works and what doesn't work. And one of the areas that we've really focused a lot of attention over the last several years is municipality and nonprofit-based solar projects. So I guess, just to take one quick step back before we talk too much about solar, the idea sort of fits in with a general transition that's happening in our society. We currently have an economy that's largely, almost exclusively powered by fossil fuel sources, which are mostly sourced long distances away. Pricing's pretty volatile, and the impacts of that are pretty evident. More recently, clean energy technologies have become much more reliable, much more affordable, and more accessible, such that now there's an opportunity to kind of balance out our energy sources. So that transition's happening pretty rapidly. And I guess when you start to think about how do I get my energy, you also should be thinking about how much energy am I using, right? And so, doing some general benchmarking and audits of town buildings is often a really good place to start. Thinking about, some of the buildings may be 100 years old or more. They probably weren't thinking about energy efficiency at that time. So there's some really basic things like, upgrading building envelopes with insulation and weatherization, doing LED lighting, air source heat pump technology to upgrade the heating plant, and air conditioning as well. There's a whole list of opportunities. We strongly recommend those be looked at in tandem with solar, because that's the way that you kind of figure out how much energy am I actually using as a total budget. So there's kind of an overall process that we recommend everyone goes through. But I guess when it comes to solar, the place to start is generally looking at energy usage and cost. So, we would recommend that the town collect all of the energy bills for all of the town buildings, likely including all of the schools. Every structure is a little different. Maybe it includes the library, maybe it doesn't. There's lots of different quasi-municipal organizations in different towns. But basically, looking at them all in aggregate. And what's interesting there is, what is the total load? What is that costing the town? And more specifically, where are those loads occurring? Because that may drive a decision to site a bunch of distributed rooftop solar to meet load, or it may drive the decision to find one single location to do a larger, community solar farm type of work. So that's an initial part of the process, is looking at total energy usage and cost. And then, as you start digging into that a little further, excuse me, I'm going to just go through to show a couple of visuals here.
I did have the projector, but it didn't bring me back. No. All right.
So, as you start to think about where all the loads are, the second thing to really be thinking about is what the opportunities are in terms of site. And so there's basically three types of solar systems that you can look at. You look at something like Interlakes High School, or the picture that I had up there, which is a ground-mounted array. So that's sort of like an open parcel of land, ideally close to some electrical infrastructure where you've got some load on site, ideally relatively flat and free of obstructions. And that's where you could site, some sort of a large-scale solar project that might, in aggregate, cover all of the town loads in one site. The alternative method would be to look at rooftop solar. And so basically there's two different types of roofs. You're going to see either a pitched roof or a flat roof. And there's sort of pros and cons of all of these different siting choices. So basically the things you're going to look at are the specific yield, which means how much production in kilowatt hours per year can I get per kilowatt hour of solar that I build. And the highest is generally going to be a ground mount, because you can point it exactly the way you want to point it. You can tilt it at the optimal angle, and generally it's in a clear field, so you're going to have no shading. So that's generally kind of your idea from a production standpoint. Also generally can be fairly expensive, because you're building a new structure, you may have to clear a little bit of site, you're going to do some trenching. And so, you might also look at doing a pitch roof, where it's pretty inexpensive to build. And as long as it's a decent orientation, decent pitch, limited shading, that can be a great application. And a flat roof for a municipal project would generally only make sense if it's pretty large and pretty unobstructed. you know, a lot of times if you see a flat roof with a bunch of rooftop units and things like that, it's tough to build solar
We don't
in a meaningful way.
know.
So those are basically the three types of projects you would look at. I would say, all right, well, what do we have for rooftops? What do we have for open land? And kind of match that up with your load. Now, when you think about a solar investment, the tax benefits and incentives that are out there are a pretty big driver of solar investment. And when you get into municipality looking at solar, there's kind of a dual challenge. One is municipalities generally don't have a lot of extra money. Most of the money's already budgeted, all of it usually. And then the second thing is that municipalities aren't paying taxes, so they don't really have a tax bill to offset. And so what's happened is there's been sort of a lot of creativity and innovation around solar financing to help with that. And that's where if you heard about a power purchase agreement or a PPA.
Our electric company does that.
Yeah, so probably a solar PPA is similar, but maybe not exactly the same. Generally, under that scenario, what you're talking about is a third-party investor bringing the capital to the table, paying for the project up front, so there's no out-of-pocket cost to the town. The town, in return, will agree to provide a suitable site for solar. Kind of do that analysis, do the full engineering and design, and say, all right, this is the site, this is what you expect. And the town will also agree to buy the energy from that array at an agreed upon rate. And typically that's, similar or slightly discounted from the current utility rate. And so ideally it offers some savings right away, and then those savings will increase over time. And then that can either go, be a 20 or 25-year contract that you just run with a slight discount, or in an ideal scenario, the town of Ashland ultimately wants to own their own solar asset. And so once you've satisfied the IRS requirements of holding the asset for 6 years for tax purposes, the town of Ashland could say, okay, now I'm going to purchase the array at a discount in year 7. And that's called a buyout. So you could then actually directly buy the asset at a pretty substantial discount.
It's like a lease.
It's very similar to the lease, yes. Yeah, that's right. And so essentially at that point, you purchase the array and the savings all accrue directly to the town. So that's the ideal scenario. Some towns may not be interested in a buyout, and they just ride out the long-term contract. But certainly the maximum benefit of solar savings come from owning the solar system. So that's the general concept of a PPA. I guess finding a really good site is really key. And then as Lee mentioned at the beginning, the other key factor is net metering policy, which is going to be an interesting conversation. And so I'll just quickly touch on how that actually works.
Yes.
So, solar production happens when the sun is out, right? It's pretty obvious. But energy usage doesn't necessarily happen at that same time. So in some of the warm summer afternoons, maybe you'll have some matchup where you're running a bunch of AC load and stuff like that. In that scenario, you're consuming the energy behind the meter. In other words, I've got my utility meter, I'm producing solar on my roof, for example, and I'm using it in real time. So that looks like just direct savings. In other words, the utility doesn't have to produce that kilowatt hour because I've produced it and consumed it myself. So that's whatever your retail rate is, that's what your savings will be. The second thing that can happen is I may be producing more energy from my solar array than what I'm actually using in real time. Under that scenario, I'm exporting it through the meter, and a net meter has been installed, and the meter at that point is counting exports. And what those exports are valued at is based on the net metering policy. So they'll, more or less, the town will need to have a conversation with the municipal electric department and try to see how that's going to be handled. I would assume that this is not something that Ashland Municipal Electric has seen a lot of. in terms of potential large scale may be an exaggeration, but relatively large scale solar projects in town. So that's a conversation that we have. And then the third thing that'll happen is you will still import some electricity from the utility. And so that's at night, right? If the lights are on right now, if I had a solar array, it would not be producing energy right now. And so the analysis is sort of figuring out how much will it produce, how much do I use in real time, how much do I export, and how much do I import? And then you kind of roll that all up into what the value looks like. Did you have a question?
Is net metering, is that something that the town would have to vote for to put in, or is that something the electric commissioners would?
Would be the ratepayers, because that's a commission.
I mean, the ratepayers. Well, yeah, but still, how would you determine how to put net metering in?
For most utilities, that's decided by the PUC.
Public
For
utilities.
Ashland Municipal, you probably know that answer better than I do, but I'm happy to help you figure that out.
Okay.
Has the cost been impacted by the tariffs that are in play now? I've been hearing that solar panels are mostly produced overseas.
Yeah, so it's a simple question with a relatively complicated answer, but in short, we have certainly seen some supply chain disruption as a result.
Okay.
For the most part, the trend of solar components getting cheaper and better over time is still continuing.
Yeah.
So it's been sort of a little bit of short-term uncertainty, but hasn't really changed the trend line much.
Okay.
So we do expect to see that continue.
Okay.
I have a little bit of a background on this. I built a solar-powered pontoon boat and ran a car on vegetable oil for 10 years, and I heat my house with solar, and I have heat pumps, and it's kind of my ballpark. But we've gone down this road before with discussing with the previous superintendent of the electric department, who had no want for this. And I guess I'll play devil's advocate. I actually looked into it. There's nothing to say that we could not use our 12 to 16 acres of land down by the Eversource power lines and sell electricity to Eversource before it goes to the substation. That's pretty viable considering the town owns the land.
Right.
Right.
And you'd be actually selling electricity to Eversource, and in turn you turn around and cut them a check right back after they gave you
Yeah.
money.
And
So
it's-
that might be a way to supersede the situation that you're dealing with.
Yeah,
Right, and it's right
possible.
beside the highway, and it's
Yeah, we
a
actually
perfect-
have a
I
couple of
think-
locations.
You do
told
have 3
him about
locations
that.
that would
Yeah,
work.
so I think in terms of that, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
It's just working out all the details.
I think something that you and I talked about on the phone that maybe you could explain a little further is that you asked me if we had some type of a project going on right now, a large-term project that might be some kind of impetus for solar, and we do have a new water and sewer receiving station that's coming in, and I was wondering if somehow they could work together to benefit, or we could use that as some type of a selling point to the public or whatever.
Yeah, so maybe I should answer your question first. But
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's two really separate models, right? And so the model you're describing is essentially either maximizing what you can export under the net metering rules that
Right.
Eversource has, just max at 1 megawatt AC, so you can probably get about 1.3 DC. And essentially, at that point, you would just be exporting at the default supply rate. There's some questions there around sort of who buys the energy, do you set up your
Yeah.
net metering, do you not bother doing that?
Yeah, that's what I was
There's a few different
wondering.
models.
Well, the way that I looked at it was, I've been dealing with, on the Conservation Commission, we've all dealt with that nice big project that tried to go through down by the highway, and one of the things we were graced with are these maps. And if you zoom out on the maps, even if you go on Google Earth, the way that the supply line is for Eversource, we own 12 to 16 acres, depending on how you look at it, between the Eversource feed line and the substation for which Ashland Electric operates.
Right.
So there's actually a way to get the electricity into the grid before it gets to that substation. So we wouldn't have to worry about retrofitting everybody's buildings to net meters, because you'd only need one, and that would be to sell electricity back to Eversource. Because it would be prior to our substation, and this would be located on Collins Street.
Yeah, so if you're asking an investor to pay for that type of a system, build it within the net metering cap, and then sell essentially sell into
Sounds a free market,
net
yeah.
net metering,
Hmm.
it's going to be pretty tight.
It would.
And under the large generator, if you don't have any load on site, you'd be carrying that value and you'd be able to cash it in once a year. But in the meantime, there would be an investor billing for the energy that's being produced.
Obviously, transaction fees and such.
So, not impossible.
I'm just thinking that, you know, if we come to that wall where there's no net metering and everybody wants solar in town, then there's got to be a way to make it happen, right?
A nice pivot. Yeah, and then the other thing you can look at is a much larger system than the net metering cap. And essentially, at that point, you're selling into the ISO.
Well, one, yeah.
That's when you see some of the really large projects that catch headlines around. That's what they're trying to do. They're essentially just leasing the land. I think it is worth noting that none of those projects have been built in New Hampshire to date, which I think just gives you an idea of they're not easy to pull off. Doesn't mean they're not worth considering, but I think there's a few different models, right? So you could go, what's the biggest possible solar array I can build here, and then
Right.
you know what am I going to do with the power? There's what I described at the beginning was more so looking at where the loads are and setting solar
Yeah.
to that.
Yep.
I think both models have merit and are worth considering. So it's large centralized versus smaller and distributed to load. But the idea is like if you had a wastewater facility that was consuming 1 or 2 million kilowatt hours per year, you could build a solar array and consume most of that behind the meter.
One of those fields is adjacent to the water
Yeah.
facility.
We
Yeah.
actually
Right.
have a water and sewer commissioner here, and they have actually looked into solar for at least some aspects of the new receiving station. Alan, do you want to make any kind of comments?
Yes, we have looked at a few different things. Basically, right now, we're going to use solar for heat. But we are looking at other opportunities. We also have reached out to a couple of prospective companies that would come in and set this up.
Oh, we
In the
ought
last
to join
6 weeks.
forces. Yeah,
I think we're all looking in the same direction.
yeah,
Yeah.
good,
Future
yeah.
possibilities.
Well, your energy
Right.
consumption is quite large, as I understand it.
Yes, I mean, it would not be really for our own use.
Yeah.
We do have a lot of acreage down there that we could set something up
Yeah,
for more than what we would use.
right.
Most large-scale companies are looking to put in no less than half a meg power, which we have plenty of room for. But, I mean, we're in early stages
Yeah.
of,
Right.
finding out
Sure.
information and whatnot.
Yeah.
Sounds like you have the groundwork for great, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
I was saying, this sounds like you have a great groundwork for collaboration.
Yeah.
yes, like I say, we've been looking at this for over a year.
Good. Great.
Very good.
Any other questions? You know, please, anyone in the audience, feel free to ask questions. Anybody on the panel, on the board? No? Okay. Well, again, we appreciate your time and your explanations, and many thanks to Lee for setting this up. You know, it's the first baby step, but hopefully we can head in that direction at some point.
Yeah, appreciate you having me. There's definitely a lot to consider.
Yeah.
Oh, I did have one more question.
Okay.
The project that you just finished at Interlinks, could you just tell us a little bit about how long that took and some of the steps? And who's actually using it now? Is it just the school?
Yeah, so they did a energy services contract for the whole school district. And there was a number of measures, some of which I described. And then the solar array was a 363 kilowatt solar array, which will provide roughly 100% of the school's energy
Wow.
after
Wow.
the efficiency measures. Yeah.
Okay.
That project was a ground mount fairly complicated with the slopes and whatnot. If you've seen it, it's right by the football field. But you know, we were able to find engineering solutions and ultimately get it constructed. So that came online in 2016.
Okay.
So yeah, certainly encourage you to speak with folks at Clear Lakes.
Where is your company located?
So we have offices in Concord and Brentwood,
Okay,
as far as New Hampshire.
okay.
How long did it take from groundbreaking to online to actually come to fruition for that project?
So there's usually a good 6 months plus of development stuff that happens before you can actually get somebody there building anything. But the construction itself, I think that one was probably about a 2-month project.
Oh,
Nice.
yeah,
Great.
that's faster than I thought.
Yeah, no kidding.
Thank
All the
you.
approvals in place.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right.
Yeah, the red tape.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll be in touch.
We'll be in touch.
Yeah, it's a good
Yeah, that's
intro.
fine.
Yeah,
That's okay.
we'd love to see it happen. Okay, again, you're welcome to stay, but you probably want to get going, so it's totally up to you. So we have minutes from November 19th. Are there any comments, corrections?
I didn't find any. I don't know if Luke did.
I didn't see
No. No. Charlie's getting good.
Thanks.
All right, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of Monday, November 19th.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
A second said motion.
Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent agenda. So for the week of November 30th, the accounts payable was $42,616 and payroll $8,759. New business, Ashland 4th of July Committee fireworks contract. Kendall B. Hughes.
Hi. So I'm Kendall Hughes, just in case anyone didn't know.
Okay, thank you for letting me know.
No, that's always good for the record. We should always do that.
That's right.
I did announce it.
So we have interviewed 3 different fireworks companies this year. The one that did the fireworks for the 150th, another one, JLP or JPL, and Atlas. What we want to do this year is we want to set the fireworks to music.
Oh,
Okay.
cool.
Lovely.
Hell's Gates was unable to do that, and JPL told us they were unable to do it. They could maybe fudge something, but you know, ultimately it wouldn't be what we wanted. We did go down to Atlas. We met with them down there, and they showed us some stuff. We have changed what we're doing for the fireworks, so they're going to be some different shapes to the fireworks.
Oh, neat.
Should be very interesting. There may even be some fireworks going off during the singing, the national anthem.
Oh, okay.
You know, and the rockets, red glare.
Yeah, the rocket, got it.
When it says rockets red glare, it goes boom.
Yeah, okay, okay,
So, so it'll be really good.
okay.
So, the committee has come up with this, which is the contract that was sent to us, and we would ask for permission for you to sign it, whoever, we're not really sure who signs the contract, so.
I'm not either.
I'm not either.
It has been-
In the
it has
past, they've
been-
asked me
it
to
has
sign
been
it.
the,
Okay.
town
But the
All
town
right,
office
so-
has just signed
Counted.
it.
In the
Yeah.
past, what my understanding is the chairman of the 4th of July has signed it, the town administrator has signed it, and the chairman of the board has signed it.
Okay.
Whichever one of you
Maybe-
wants to, we're
maybe we
welcome
should
to
all.
have.
Maybe we should all.
How does this compare with last year, Kendall?
Yeah.
It's $1,000 more than last year.
Oh, that's all?
The music, what they're gonna do for the music is it's a, we have a DJ that's gonna be down there.
Yeah,
Oh, neat.
So we've changed a few things that
Yeah.
are gonna be down there.
yeah.
Modernized.
Yes, we've modernized. We have a DJ who will have a soundtrack which Atlas is preparing. We will synchronize between Atlas and the DJ
Okay.
on telephone.
Okay,
Oh.
And they will say, okay, she's at such and such, fire, push.
okay.
And they put the music together and everything for us, so it's all synchronized to the different shots.
Oh, nice.
Very cool.
so how
Nice.
far away are you going to be able to hear this music?
You'll be able to hear it down at the ballpark, across the ballpark.
Okay.
Oh, you
Just
mean like on the other side of town?
No, I'm thinking
The
about
music
it.
will come from the ballpark, but the fireworks are up
Yeah.
behind the school, is that
Correct.
right? Yeah.
Because it is in a residential neighborhood where they set
Right.
it
Yeah.
off if...
Yeah.
It's not gonna be louder than fireworks.
Yeah, no. No, we don't have people at the
We've
fireworks.
actually
so-
done this in the past,
Yeah.
many years ago, down at the 4th of July down there.
Yeah.
I realize I'm not going to be able to hear it from my house.
Yeah, right.
You,
We have to go.
we had to keep telling the DJ last year to turn the music down because he was interfering with some bands. During the fireworks, there obviously will not be anyone else playing, so
Right.
you should be able to hear it nicely down there, and it's appropriate patriotic
So
music.
it's within the venue where you encourage
Yes.
people
Yeah,
to come
yeah,
in?
yeah.
Yes, I do not anticipate that you'll hear it on Depot Street or Winter Street or wherever.
Just in case, somebody
Yeah,
could ask.
I know, okay.
Yeah.
And we
You
will.
always got to think about...
We're hopeful that you'll hear it across the entire ballpark.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
They
that
will
would
be,
be nice.
they will
yeah.
be, the speakers will be aimed more to the back of the ballpark than the
Okay.
front of the ballpark.
Aren't
Yeah.
you trying to encourage people
We are trying to encourage people to go to the back.
back?
Yeah.
Instead of, everybody was
Yes.
on the hillside.
Yeah.
I had this
So,
one
yeah.
gentleman this
Right.
year, sat up on the hill, he
Good
actually
point.
sat on the hill itself, and I said, sir, you have a much better viewing over there than you will here. I've sat here for 30 years.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
sit there.
Yeah, whatever.
off my teeth.
Right, right.
So,
Well, great. Can I have a motion to approve the signing of this contract?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second said motion.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so how do you want to do this signature? You and me and Chair of the 4th of
Chair.
July?
you can sign.
I can sign
We
it?
only need one signature.
You only need one signature? Okay.
Go ahead, Fran.
Right there.
Oh, good.
And then I assume you're gonna get the contract from her, and if you could email me a copy and to Hannah.
It says
Charlie, just move it.
by name and title.
Yep.
What does by mean? By the town of
By
Ashland?
the town of Ashland.
Okay. And it is December 3rd. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you.
Kendall.
While I have you, I have some other interesting news from the 4th of July committee.
Okay,
Last year, Ernie Paquette was our Grand Marshal. Ernie, the Grafton County Commissioners saw the write-up which we wrote about Ernie. They contacted the 4th of July committee, they've asked a few questions, and each year, the Grafton County report is dedicated to 3 people. Each commissioner chooses one. Ernie will be honored
Nice.
as in the
Nice.
Grafton County report. Omar has nominated him, it's been
excellent.
accepted.
Great.
Wonderful.
And the presentation will be December 11th
Okay,
at 11 o'clock at the Grafton County. Some of us are going over. You're welcome to join us.
Okay.
We finally got hold of Ernie to tell him.
You'll take pictures.
good.
We can take, yes, Sue will take pictures.
Wonderful. Well, that's
Great.
very good news. Thank you,
That's
Kendall.
great.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Yes.
to Ernie, too.
Okay,
Very nice.
okay. Any other new business? No? Any select board items?
I just have a couple
Okay.
Go ahead.
items. I just wanted to thank the Ashland Fire Department. They decorated their fire truck excellently, and I saw it in Plymouth's Christmas night parade, Saturday night, and it was quite impressive.
Very
And they
nice.
had a very nice announcement Tim Keith made.
Okay.
I'm guessing it was the new truck.
It was a new truck,
No,
yes,
it
they
wasn't.
gave it, it wasn't?
Wasn't? Oh,
Oh, they gave it quite an explanation that it was a new one.
Oh, we did?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but we were in it, and it was great, and it looked great.
Great,
It looked
thank you.
great. And the other thing is, I just wondered if at our next work session, if we could put it on the agenda that we need to all get together and make sure that we have an emergency phone tree system set up, because the storm that we had last week
Yep.
affected some of us in town and not others.
Right.
And I have been on the board a couple times when we had emergencies, and the first one was flooding of Amesbrook.
Yeah.
That was quite tragic.
Yeah.
But we were in between administrators then, and the board and department heads were the ones that had the responsibility of setting up the shelter here, getting food, transportation, and at that time I think that we should have a more efficient,
Right.
and all of us be in contact with each other, because
Sure.
I did not have everybody's phone number.
Right.
And it was important to have Charlie be in charge. And then we had the same incident, the ice storm. You probably remember that, Craig, the ice storm, and we had the generator, and we had to open the shelter again.
Yep.
So that's been twice in the last
Yeah.
15 years that we had to do that.
Yeah, no, I think that's excellently. You called me and I called Steve Heath, and, you know, he was, of course, on top of things as he
Right.
always is, and he was gonna contact Charlie.
Yeah.
But, if it were a more formal arrangement, it would have been easier, so.
Yeah, and he's our main contact,
Yeah.
and I think we were all in the loop, all of us, in case one of us had to come
Yeah.
up and open up the shelter as
Yeah.
I had to do.
Right,
Both times. So
Okay.
if next work session, I think
all
we
right,
did that.
sounds good.
That's all I have.
Any other select board items?
I would just like to thank the electric department for doing such a great job last week when we lost power. I was without power for 16 hours, but it was good to see.
16, wow.
16.
Yeah,
Wow.
it was good to see him up. You know, I saw some
I
faces
was
I've
more
never
than
seen
that.
before, and it was good to see everything come back so
Well,
soon.
that's certainly a real advantage of having your own electric department,
Yeah.
because they're right here. and-
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, they,
yeah.
the travel.
Okay,
Yes, he's been known to
Well,
tell
some of the guys came
culprits.
from Middleton, Mass, but they seem
Okay.
to know
Yeah.
the system quite well.
good.
He did.
Anything else? No? Okay.
yeah, I have
Yes, you have something, Charlie.
Our next work session. I was thinking we could talk about the warrant. I talked about it with the department heads today,
Okay.
that they should bring forward any warrant articles that they might have
Okay.
at that meeting, because I was thinking we could probably have our public hearing January 7th.
Okay,
We have to, it's either January 7th is our first meeting in January. The 8th is the last day for petition warrant articles to receive, but we also have to give 7 days notice.
okay,
The last day to hold the hearing is January 15th.
okay.
Okay,
So that's why
that's close.
Yeah.
it's either you have it
Yeah,
on
no,
the
we've gotta
7th
get done.
or
Gotta
you
do it the
meet
7th.
some, yeah.
Yeah,
Might as
I
well
would
do
better
it
do
same
it.
day
Yeah.
you have your meeting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay.
would.
Right? So again, all the department heads are probably gonna come forward with that. I'll obviously get you the warrant before.
Yeah.
It's pretty much ready to go, except for the petition. I don't have any petitions.
Okay,
How about department heads attending the next budget committee meeting? 2 departments volunteered to go,
okay.
which is next Tuesday, December 11th.
Which two?
Police and fire.
Okay,
I tried to get a joint meeting and that just didn't go over.
okay.
But
If they want to go,
you're
that's
more than
fine.
welcome to attend.
Yeah,
It is a public meeting.
it's next Tuesday?
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
What time is it?
They're
Is that
They're-
at 6 or 6:30?
6 o'clock. Yeah. They are.
and where are they?
They're getting close to crunch time. I mean, they're
Yeah,
like
no.
they have a month left.
Where are they meeting?
Fire department,
Okay.
fire station.
Okay.
So I mean, they have a month left.
Yeah,
So, other than that, the only other thing I didn't know if you want to talk about the Whipple House and with David. David had some questions about the Whipple House
Yeah.
agreement.
David, you want to make your comments now?
Oh, yeah, I have several
Okay.
questions. I should explain, except for that one meeting the same week we presented the lease, we haven't been able to get together since. What I have are sort of questions from individuals, not questions from the board as a
Yep.
whole.
Yep,
So they wander all over the place. But it would be helpful to bring them up, and if you could answer any of them either now or later.
Okay.
it'd be useful. The biggest concern is the use of the rent money in the apartment. And we're wondering what is required to change the use of the rent money? Is that a town vote rescinding the vote from 1976, the town meeting vote then,
Or is it the approval of the selectmen, or both, or what is involved?
Charlie, haven't you gotten some feedback on that from legal?
No, but I don't know how it wouldn't be the board, since it's the board's
Yeah,
purview.
okay.
That the RSA 4111A.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's.
maybe you should give David a copy of that
Oh, we have
RSA.
it.
You have it?
Mm,
Yeah, I think it spells out what the authority, who has authority on town-owned
Okay.
buildings.
So that's my next question, was that, in your opinion, leaves the terms of a lease entirely to the discretion of the selectmen and cannot be dictated by a town meeting vote? Which way are you going?
No, Selectmen
should
shall
be-
have authority to manage all real property owned by the town and to regulate its use.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't explicitly say that a town meeting vote couldn't change that. but, I
The
mean,
selectmen shall have the authority to manage all real property owned by the town and to regulate its use, unless such management and regulation is delegated to other public officers.
Right.
The legislative body is not a public officer.
Yeah,
So is that, again, we're not lawyers, so
Yeah.
is that the generally accepted opinion on how that works? That the town meeting vote is not binding?
The legislative body can tell, advise, give their vote that we can lease it. This BOS can release town-owned property, but not to who or how it's going to be managed.
I
Okay.
mean, this
And
is
that
an
has-
RSA,
Yeah.
and the town can't change the
And it has,
RSA.
and the RSA, and you have to, every 5 years, it has to be revisited by the legislative body, the permission to continue the leasing,
Okay.
effective August 21st, 2009.
Right. All right, so the vote of the 1976 town meeting, which you seem to be relying on
Language.
for the language of
Yep.
the lease,
Mhm.
are you bound by that vote, or?
At the present time, that is the
But
standing
it,
vote.
yeah, and then this supersedes
Yeah.
that.
Okay,
Indoor
so
leases
how do you
voice
get
track.
away from that binding requirement from the 76 town meeting? Do we just rescind the vote from 1976?
That would have to be asked by legal, but I think this
The RSA
RSA
supersedes it.
supersedes
Yeah.
it.
Okay, that's what I'm getting confused on.
Hmm.
So, is that vote in 1976 binding on you until it's rescinded, or can you rescind it at any, can you negate it at any time and just go your own way on how the rent money is spent, or the selectmen, I mean?
I'm not sure I understand your
I
question.
mean-
I think he's asking is if it's still binding to this date, but as of 2009,
yeah.
it's not binding anymore.
Not binding.
Right.
Oh, it's
The
not binding.
legislator deemed, and my background information, what I found, this is so the towns weren't bound up by these long-term leases
Right.
for like 99 years,
Okay,
that every 5 years it would be revisited
okay.
by the town. Shall the town give the selectmen authority to lease the Whipple House, and then whatever the years, for the next 5 years? That's how I'm guessing it would be presented, and if it's yes, it's yes. But they cannot say to who or how it's gonna be handled.
Okay.
Just the permission to lease town-owned property, which is owned by everybody, you know.
Okay,
By
so
the
the
town.
requirement that the rent money be used only for repairs and improvement is now up to you.
I would say, yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
Yes,
Yeah.
because we have the authority
Yeah.
by this RSA.
As of now, you have that.
As of
Right.
2009.
Right.
Okay, well, we were trying to figure out
yeah.
who has the authority to do that. So, there is therefore no need to rescind the vote from 1970?
Right.
I think it's void now.
It is void now, yeah.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
we, Charlie can ask
Yeah.
legal to.
Yeah,
I think the point of the new lease was to, because we have permission now, is
Yeah.
to kind of make it legal
yeah,
Mhm.
based on what the town vote was.
Right.
Because that's no longer legal.
right.
Okay, all right, it's getting a little clearer. So if the town meeting were to make a vote, like the one we proposed to you, would you, as selectmen, follow the wishes of the voters?
No, because they don't have the authority to dictate how it's,
Okay,
Yeah.
so even if it was advisory, you wouldn't, I don't know what to say.
you can, but at the same time, personally, I don't think putting out petition warrant articles that can't be
Enforced.
enforced is helpful.
And
Yeah.
again, I think I suggested, David, that as a 501c3,
C3, yeah.
you could put out a petition warrant article to ask for funds,
Funds.
as any charity does.
Okay.
And then you can use those for whatever
Your
other
corporate
purposes.
use. So you do have an avenue.
You do.
Yeah, we have.
And you can fundraise.
Yeah, you can fundraise.
Any way you can, any way you want to.
Most 501c3s, that's they need funds for their programs, and usually it's through fundraising.
Okay. All right. So my next question actually relates to the actual restriction, because Dr. Whipple's deed to the town in 1970, which the 1970 town meeting approved, and both the town meeting vote and the deed have the same language, which is the Whipple House is to be used and maintained as an historical building for the preservation and perpetuation of historical articles and for activities related thereto. So the town actually agreed to that.
Yeah,
And the deed is to the town.
yeah.
So the way we look at it, the town has the obligation to essentially run a historical museum and archives in the building.
It could be a museum, but it doesn't specify the word museum. So it
No,
could be,
but it's.
so it could be broad, and yes, David, the Historical Society could still use the Whipple House with the new lease.
Right, yes.
You just cannot use the rent money for your corporate use. That's
Okay.
that's the
only change.
But you've actually made it narrower than, we would have said, I would have said that language suggests that we, besides maintaining the building, there was also an obligation on the town's part to use it as for the, well, preservation, perpetuation of historical articles in the.
I think you're splitting hairs, David.
Yeah,
Right.
and that's why we leased it to you,
You.
because that's your purview,
You.
is
Okay.
historical
Yeah.
issues. And you know, the Historical Society wanted to have the building for that purpose, as I understand it. And there's a,
Right.
you know,
Well, but when we took over the building for, you know, we were going to use the money. It was always an apartment rental as
Yep.
part of the project.
yeah,
Dr. Whipple was actually asked about it, and he agreed that that was, and the money was going to be used to run this historical museum, as well as to preserve the
But David, we
building.
do not have that documentation.
Well,
This is back and forth verbal.
yeah.
right, but the
And-
deed talks about the use of the building.
So you're asking if that money, in addition to repairs, can be used within that building for purposes of a museum?
A museum and archive. which
An
is what
archive,
it's-
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's something that we have authority to do,
right.
yeah.
So,
It's just that we're saying that money can't be used for the train station or anything else.
Or your programs.
Yeah, the
But-
programs.
your lease, as you proposed it, limits it just to fiscal improvements to the building, or repairs. I mean, that's all we can do with the money. But we can't run the museum or the archives through it.
I think this was a good start. I think we should go forward.
Yeah.
You should accept it, and we'll see how it
Again,
works out.
it's completely subject to
Yeah,
negotiation. We
negotiation,
just
yeah.
needed something in place before this lease expired. We can revisit this lease at any time
Yeah.
and, you know,
In a
come
year.
with proposals, absolutely.
But it's
Okay.
not, you need to work with, the Historical Society needs to have a brainstorming session or something to decide how are they gonna move forward in the future. This
Yeah.
is, you know, it's 2019 coming up, it's not 1978 anymore.
Okay, right, but we.
And whatever your mission is, how you're gonna fund this. And right now, it's not gonna be with the rent. Your mission is not gonna be funded by the rent from the Whipple
Well, what I'm
House.
trying to find out if you're open to broadening the use of the rent.
We're open to discussion, but I think our primary goal is to ensure that the repairs are done.
Yes. Because
Because it is a building that is insured for $1 million,
Yeah.
and we want to make sure that the things that need to be fixed get fixed.
And I think our
primarily.
visual, when we went there were some things that I know have not been, that I saw 3 years ago that still haven't been attended to. So it's, like I said, this is on the Historical Society to decide how are they gonna move forward. The Select Board, we did what we allowed to by this RSA. It's now up to you how you're gonna continue forward. And you might have to do some fundraising, David. You might have to have a petition warrant article to see if the town wants to help with your mission. But right now,
I mean, I think
yeah.
we'd all like to see that building be more utilized.
Yeah, because right now that building is
I mean,
closed up for what, 10 months out of the year, and it's open by appointment, and I have no idea, maybe you can tell everybody how many people actually made appointments to have a tour of the Whipple House.
Oh, appointments don't work that well.
No.
But we do offer it as.
Yeah.
Yes, but let's be honest, not many people do come to the Whipple House for a walkthrough
Yeah.
on their own.
That having been said, there's a lot of treasures in there.
Yes.
that we would love to
Yeah.
see
Well, I used to
preserved
have,
and displayed.
Christmas open house.
Yep.
Those were nice.
Yep.
Yes, and they haven't done those
Well,
in a
that's the
very
hard
long
part. I
time.
mean, it's, they're,
But see, you do
It's
have,
their job.
that's what I mean. You and your group are gonna have to be more creative in how you're gonna manage going forward.
okay. But you are open to the notion of an appropriation from the town then?
Well, that's up to you.
That's up to you. That's a
totally, You're
petition.
totally free to
Yeah.
do that. And then it's up to the voters.
Okay,
I can tell you, David, if you put one forward, I'd sign it.
thank you. Only need 24.
Me too.
Well, you only need
Me
24
too.
signatures, but you need 50% of the votes to fund it, so.
So I would suggest that we give this, that you encourage the start, this, you're still the president, I gather.
Right.
That you sign this, and we'll see how it works out for a year.
Okay, well. the
Because
board
we'll
is
have to,
not-
because it's a yearly lease, and it's up for renewal. The
But
same-
come back and talk to us
Yeah.
periodically, you know,
Sure,
as you
well-
start processing stuff.
There are a couple other questions.
Okay.
Is the rent money to be used for these improvements, is that the gross income or the net?
I have no idea,
You don't even
David,
know
what you
you
bring
get.
in.
Yeah,
No clue.
no.
Well, no, but it's a general question. I mean, there are costs to renting the apartment.
Of course there are, and obviously you need to cover those costs.
Right,
So-
so can it be covered by the rent money?
Absolutely,
Because
All right.
that's, because
That-
it's part of the building.
absolutely it can.
Well, as it reads now, it suggests that we can only use the rent money for improvements or repairs. But for example, the water and sewer bill is one that comes every month, which over a year is like $360, you know?
Yeah, and then I would think the money could pay for that too.
Okay, so is that your
Doesn't it
understanding?
say,
That is my
doesn't it say
understanding.
operation? Or
No.
did we cross that
We
out?
crossed off,
Yeah,
yeah,
oh, let me,
yeah.
But, I mean, if it would say whether it's the gross or the net rent money,
I can't answer that because I have no
Yeah, I-
idea what you bring in.
Right.
Not a clue.
Well, gross and net, it would cover, I guess my question would be, I'm not sure how it's set up. Is the electricity the same way? Do you folks pay the electricity, or does your tenant have a separate bill?
the tenant has a separate bill, he also pays the propane. He's the only person. who
Okay.
pays.
So
Okay.
you're just talking about the utilities for the Whipple House?
Well, that's part of its upkeep.
Keep,
You
yeah.
can't go without utilities.
Okay.
So I would consider that part of the routine maintenance and
too.
upkeep.
I would consider it a necessity. actually.
Absolutely it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Okay, so utilities are part of maintenance?
Of course.
We weren't
You can't
clear
turn the
about
heat off.
They don't have any heat.
Oh,
Yeah.
whatever.
So,
Can't-
in your interpretation of the lease, utilities are part of the maintenance?
Well, you have
Yeah.
a toilet, you have to have water to
Yeah.
flush
Right.
it.
Okay.
Of course. That would just make
All
sense.
right. But there may be other costs associated with renting the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
Those would be taken out before we...
Such as?
David,
Well,
we
we don't
don't
know.
have, you
Yeah,
have
again, yeah.
never shared any of this information with
Never had
anybody
to.
at the
I
board.
know.
I mean, when I'm saying you, I mean the Historical Society. We do not have any information on how this has been handled.
No.
No, it's just.
I mean, I don't think we're trying to be unreasonable. If there are costs associated
Yeah,
with renting the
but we
property.
need to know this.
Yeah, it would just be nice
I
to
mean,
know what it is.
just off the top of my head, I mean, I have a couple properties that I rent. Okay, so you're talking water. You'd have to worry about your driveway. You'd have to worry about making sure that your steps, your person doesn't fall down and break his hip and sue the town. You know, these are all incurred things that
Absolutely.
would be covered under those expenses.
Yeah.
You have to pay to have your driveway cleared. You have to pay to have your steps cleared if your tenant doesn't do that. You need to pay for salt or sand or whatever you put in the driveway. These would all be incurred costs.
Of course they
Okay.
would.
So the actual cost of renting the apartment are also covered by the rent money?
I would assume so.
Yes, sir.
Okay, just wanted to be sure. So the other thing that was added was the insurance.
Charlie will have to speak to that because that was from Primex, wasn't it?
Well, it's on,
It's not the insurance. We have insurance.
yeah.
We've been actually sending annually a certificate of insurance to the town. But under the old lease, it was not required, it was optional for the Historical Society.
Well, you have a
Under the
human
new
being
lease-
living there, so you have to insure for,
Right, okay. But again, it's a question of the money.
Yeah. Well, that's a cost of operating the building.
That can we use the rent money for the insurance?
I
At least-
wouldn't see why not. It's
You
a
have
cost
to.
of operations.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
You don't want if you ever, heaven forbid it ever happens, but if you had a fire there and your renter lost all their stuff, or we lost all of those great treasures,
Yeah.
they have to be replaced.
Absolutely.
Or try to replace
Yeah.
them, and that's something that you need.
Okay, it was unclear to us, what we can do.
Yep.
All right. So that's on the money part. And I'll have to go, back to the board. So on the documentation, which is the other new section, we were just wondering what documentation does the town require of its town departments? Is it the same? Do you have 4 fewer and after photos?
We want to have notice of any repairs that are done, how much they've cost, who the contractor was, just kind
We
of.
don't have access to the building
No.
on a
Right.
day-to-day basis, so it's incumbent on you to be our eyes.
Yeah,
I don't think
For us.
we're,
and it's not
Against
like
that,
another
but-
department.
but we're trying to understand what.
This is not an onerous task.
No.
Somebody with a cell phone can take the picture of whatever is damaged or
Right.
needs to be replaced and attached it to the document, so we can keep a file. So
On the property.
So whoever comes after us knows what's going on in that building, because right now, I'm speaking for myself, I really don't know, and I don't know if anybody else here has any idea. It's,
So-
we do not walk in there, we do not go in without, usually you're the one that
Oh, we're
brings
not-
us in.
I don't think anybody's disputing the need for
Yeah.
documentation. The question is the way this is worded. So why twice a year is the question that was asked.
I think it was just a way of ensuring that we got periodic updates. Obviously, if something major comes up, we want to hear about it. We don't want to wait for 6 months, if you've had to rebuild a chimney, but we just want to ensure that we have 2 points throughout the year that we're getting an update on what's going on with the building.
This would actually help him as far as, with seasonal stuff as well, because I know, I'm understanding that you pay a gentleman to take care of
Yeah.
some work there. You could keep that, up to tab on that. And
Yep.
also in the wintertime, if you have to get sand or salt, yes, we purchased X amount of salt or sand, and then that would be a way to categorize it for the following year so people
Yep.
know what to expect.
I mean,
And
most
you keep
people-
those
point here.
records. Like I said, we only want to be notified if there's a major repair, but then in the periodic update.
And most
we'll-
homeowners do this. They do their spring cleaning, or their fall cleaning, or whatever. Whatever happens over the winter, then you can give us the documentation. What was it, June, and then
January.
in
December or
in this,
whatever.
yeah, after the fall, when the building is basically
Yeah.
closed up for the entire winter.
It would also give us an idea of what it costs to upkeep that building over
Yeah,
the course of the
because
year.
Very
really,
true.
So we
David,
can have a more
yeah.
fruitful conversation, because right now, like
Yeah.
you said, you've never had to provide this before, but next year, when the board's sitting here, you can say, okay, well, this is this,
Right.
and that, and have it all laid out for you.
Because we're answerable to the people. If people ask us questions, I don't like saying, I don't know, I have no clue. It's not I don't like being in that position. And since you have occupied this building, I mean the Historical Society, for so long, I think you have a duty to the town to provide this information, because you're using town property. It's not owned by the Historical Society, which many people think it is, and it is not. And these are not difficult duties to do. Maybe you can have a subcommittee, a building committee or something.
Okay, it's just the particulars of the documentation I'm trying to get at. Because it says any repairs and maintenance. And it seems very broad and.
Anything, David, anything that has
Just
to be
keep track of
fixed.
it.
Yeah.
Again, I think for routine maintenance, we don't need to know about it
Well, if
on
they
the
have a
spot,
drippy
but-
faucet and they had to
Yeah.
have a plumber come in, we should know that, or if it just needed a new washer.
Right. Yeah, obviously, don't come to us for that.
But we
but-
should know that too, just so we know
But-
what is going on in that
Okay,
building.
I don't mind those things, but any maintenance gets rather particular. I mean, we're thinking if we change a light bulb.
No, no,
David,
no,
David,
no.
that's, but like I said, you're really
Absolutely not.
splitting
Or-
hairs.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
it
it's-
sounded like
just
all
come on,
repairs
now
and
let's-
maintenance, so-
We're not, I don't think we're trying to be
Yeah.
unreasonable, it's common
Okay.
sense,
Yeah,
David.
yeah.
Well, we didn't really think you wanted before.
No, absolutely not.
Please.
You know, any
Yeah.
more than we ask
Sure.
DPW to let us know if they change a tire. I don't, you know, we assume
Do
they're gonna
you?
do that. But when the truck breaks
No,
down, we
don't
wanna
make-
know about it.
Don't make this more than what it says there, and that's what I
Really,
mean by.
that's what it said, any repairs and
Yeah,
maintenance.
well,
So we
common
don't know.
sense
Common
should
sense,
prevail.
David,
Okay,
yes.
so
Okay.
broken window pane, you don't really need that.
Just keep track of it and let us
A
know in a
broken window
periodic
pane can
update.
lead to other problems.
Yeah, but you fix it and then
Yeah,
just let us know.
know.
We're not gonna ask you to get approval for us to fix a broken
Right.
window, that's,
We-
So I saw there was a broken window pane there 2 years ago when we went through the tour.
Yeah.
I noticed it had been fixed.
yeah,
Right.
But
Good.
that's because I had been in that
Yeah.
building prior
right.
and had noticed it.
So the before and after photos be when appropriate, right?
When appropriate,
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, like a broken window,
Yeah.
you show where it is before and after.
Oh, you do want pictures of the
Yeah.
broken window? Oh.
Yeah, because that's leakage problems. It could be, it could, if it's broken, it could go undetected for days, especially in the winter. Could go all winter and the moisture could seep in and then you have another problem. Soon as
We
you
have
find
something.
something, you take a picture.
Yeah. So some member did ask about the status of Witten House, but the board hasn't really discussed it. It's
No,
not.
It's
that's
not ours,
That's
it's
not
yours.
ours, yeah,
It's yours.
that's not our purview.
Yeah.
There are a couple minor points that were pointed out. It's that the address is actually 14 Pleasant Street, and the
We have it as
property-
19?
It's not 12.
Oh, 12, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
well, we can fix that.
Yeah.
Well,
The
you,
property
that's,
is on the west side of Pleasant Street, not on the north
well, that's the
side.
information you need to
Yeah.
give to Charlie.
Yep.
as-
Yeah, I
and
was
we-
gonna give
yeah.
him a copy.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
asked-
yeah. Those changes are.
I
no
still
big
don't
deal.
know who the man is that lives
Oh, it's
there.
Ron Newton. Been there for
No
a
relation.
couple decades.
But, you know, just things
Yeah,
like
no, I
that.
know.
I said, I have no
What
idea.
is
His
it,
name's
14
Ron.
Pleasant Street?
And we also, there was also a member who wanted the word nonprofit put before corporation. You guys can be a municipal corporation, we can be a
You can be nonprofit. You are nonprofit.
Yes. So where we stand is, having a hard time. I tried a couple times to get another meeting together on this issue. It doesn't look like that's going to happen in December at this present time.
David, 3 people, you can't get a quorum together?
We need 5.
You need 5?
Yeah.
I think you better try really hard.
I have
It's
to-
very important.
Uh,
Because if you don't sign it, you don't have a lease.
Right. So what happens then, actually?
I haven't even entertained that thought.
I haven't either.
I assumed that
Well, I was
this would have
kind of
been,
assuming it would work too, but it's not working. so
well,
I'll
try
try
harder,
again,
David.
but
Twist some arms.
People are busy this time.
Well,
Some are away,
I-
so,
Said, try harder.
okay.
Hey, we
But
managed to get
there's
together,
also-
so to get our business done.
There's
And
also
we're
an
busy
interest
too.
in having our own legal review of the document by an attorney, and it seems like that's unlikely to happen. in
Probably
December.
unlikely. Again,
In
we'll
December.
we'll revisit it next year.
Well, I'm not sure how this, it might be January before we come to a decision.
David, we have a deadline and you really need to follow it.
Okay.
That is the purpose of it. You had fair warning. It was
Well,
spelled,
we
you
did
spelled
get
out,
next warning on this lease proposal, so
David, I went through the timeline, and I'm not gonna go through it again, like I did the last meeting. But it's incumbent upon the Historical Society to find a way to get together if they want to continue the use of the Whipple House for $1 a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So.
David, the ball's in your court,
Thank you. but-
in the Historical Society's court, because we did our due diligence. And personally, I don't see the value of extending it because we
Well,
already
we've got-
approved this
Got an
document.
entire month
Month.
essentially,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
I find it hard to believe you can't get 5 people together for 10 minutes.
yes.
Yeah, you would think that. but
Mhm.
it's hard
Like I
to-
said, David,
Well-
work your magic.
It could be, you know, lack of motivation
Yeah,
too, but
yeah.
on somebody's part, but, yeah. I
well,
mean, that's all we're asking is,
So you have any other questions
Well,
we
the
can answer
suggestion
that we
was,
can?
Well, as
do?
far as this January, I mean, people have said that we could continue as a tenant at will.
No, you're not in the, I don't think you're in the position to dictate how you're gonna lease the building.
No, we're not, it's just the problem of getting the.
No,
board
and
to agree.
there's risk with tenant at will, a month by month too.
Mhm.
I think we need to stick to what the board decided, and it was a unanimous vote. So I'm gonna say it again. You need to do something to get this done by December 31st.
So the tenant at will idea is.
We haven't even discussed this.
and that would be something to run by legal as well.
Yeah,
so
and, yeah.
We're certainly not prepared to discuss that tonight.
It was a 4-to-1 vote on the lease.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry. You're right, Harold.
Okay. Well, I'll try again.
Okay.
Come on, David, you can do it.
You'd be surprised when the
Wow.
ones that have something.
Anything else, David?
No, that's.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, with the signature file, we have MVSB TAN request disbursement.
Yep.
It's in the folder.
It's in the folder.
Okay.
We approved the TAN with Meredith Village Savings Bank.
Yep.
We have to make a disbursement.
Yep.
The tax bills have not gone out yet.
You have to set the rate.
Yeah, we still trying to figure out the
waiting
MS1. They're
Yeah.
almost done. There was some, I guess, Patsy had some discrepancies, I guess you could say. And the assessors are trying to clarify it before we officially send it to DRA and get it approved. Long story short, hopefully we can get the tax bills out next week. But in the meantime, the town still has obligations to pay.
Yep.
So we have to make a disbursement.
Okay. Anything else before we adjourn? Okay, in that case, I'd entertain a motion to go into non-public according to RSA 91A:3, Roman numeral 2, small letter A, which was employment.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?